The Cranium capital erupted into ashes, screams and boiling blood. Nicholas Robertson strode through the chaos, glowing with godlike power. Cranium bodies littered the ruined streets. Buildings crumbled and ships crashed. Nicholas moved with cold purpose, blue energy crackling around him. His skin glowed. His eyes sparked lightning. A Cranium soldier crawled through the rubble. His exoskeleton was crushed. Blue blood leaked from his mouth. He grabbed Nicholas's armored leg. Why did you destroy everything?" The soldier coughed. His lungs rattled. Nicholas looked down without pity. "Your sins are beyond redemption. I am humanity's rage-given form. I will scour your empire from existence." "Monster, abomination," the soldier spat. Nicholas nodded slowly. "Yes, I am what you made us. You tortured us, enslaved us, experimented on us, but you could not break us. You only made us stronger. Now we have ascended beyond your control. We are your doom." Nicholas placed his palm on the soldier's head. The man's eyes went wide. Then his skull vanished in a flash of light. His body slumped over, headless and smoking. Nicholas looked to the sky. The remnants of the Cranium fleet limped away, trailing smoke and fire. Their weapons were useless. Their defenses crumbled. The unstoppable human onslaught had shattered their empire in days. Nicholas clenched his fists. Power rippled along his armor. Humanity would not stop, could not stop. Not until every last trace of their cruel alien overlords was wiped away. The Cranium had sown the seeds of their own destruction. Now it was time to reap the bitter harvest. The Cranium ships had darkened the skies of Earth, blotting out the sun. Mizar stood on the bridge of his dreadnought, the Dominion's fist as his armada laid waste to the planet's surface. Cities crumbled under the relentless barrage of plasma cannons. Forests burned, oceans boiled. Humanity scrambled to mount a defense, but their primitive weapons were useless against the Cranium's superior technology. Mizar smiled as he watched the destruction unfold. This was his moment of triumph. He had discovered this backwater world and its weak inhabitants. He had convinced the Cranium leadership to launch this invasion. And now he would reap the rewards. Earth's resources would fuel the Cranium Empire's expansion for centuries to come, and Mizar would be hailed as a hero. But even as the Cranium celebrated their victory, a desperate plan was being set in motion. In a hidden bunker deep beneath the ruins of Los Angeles, Dr. Eliza Novak and her team of scientists worked feverishly to complete their secret project. For years, they had been researching ways to unlock the full potential of the human mind and body. Now, with the Cranium at their doorstep, they had no choice but to put their theories to the test. Nicholas Robertson lay strapped to a table, his body writhing in agony as the experimental serum coursed through his veins. He screamed until his throat was raw, his muscles convulsing uncontrollably. The pain was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It felt as though every cell in his body was being torn apart and reassembled. But then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the pain subsided. Nicholas opened his eyes, blinking in the harsh light of the laboratory. He felt different, stronger, faster, more alive than he had ever been before. He sat up, snapping the restraints that held him like they were made of paper. Dr. Novak approached him cautiously, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. "How do you feel?" she asked. Nicholas flexed his hands, marveling at the power that coursed through them. "I feel like I could take on the entire Cranium army by myself," he said. And he did. Nicholas and the other volunteers who had undergone the transformation process became humanity's last hope. They fought with a ferocity and strength that the Cranium had never encountered before. Bullets bounced off their skin like raindrops. They could leap buildings in a single bound and crush tanks with their bare hands. Across the globe, Dr. Novak's team worked to replicate the process, transforming more and more humans into living weapons. In ruined cities and hidden strongholds, the resistance grew. The Cranium found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered before. The battles were fierce and bloody. Cranium ships rained down destruction from above, while empowered humans unleashed devastation on the ground. Oceans boiled under the onslaught of energy weapons. Cities crumbled into rubble. The very fabric of the earth itself seemed to be tearing apart. Amidst the chaos of the raging war, Nicholas and Mizar found themselves locked in a titanic struggle. The Krenim captain had taken to the field, his eyes ablaze with fanatical determination to crush the human resistance once and for all. Nicholas charged forward, his enhanced body crackling with energy. Mizar raised his plasma rifle and fired, but the bolts dissipated harmlessly against Nicholas's impenetrable skin. With a roar of fury, Nicholas closed the distance and unleashed a devastating barrage of blows. Mizar staggered back, his armor dented and sparking. He activated his force field and lashed out with his electrified baton, but Nicholas was too fast. He dodged the strike and seized Mizar's wrist, crushing the weapon with a flex of his fingers. The two titans grappled, their strength evenly matched. Mizar head-butted Nicholas, his helmet cracking from the force of the blow. Nicholas responded with a knee to the gut, doubling Mizar over. Seizing the opening, Nicholas grabbed Mizar by the throat and hoisted him into the air. Mizar's eyes bulged as he clawed at Nicholas's grip. "You cannot win," he gasped. "The Krenim will never surrender." With a final devastating squeeze, Nicholas crushed Mizar's throat. The Krenim captain's body went limp, and Nicholas tossed him aside like a rag doll. The Krenim forces, seeing their leader fall, faltered. Nicholas seized the moment and rallied the human troops. "Press the attack," he roared. "We end this now." Empowered soldiers surged forward, tearing through the Krenim ranks like a hot knife through butter. Nicholas led the charge, his eyes fixed on the massive shape of the Krenim command ship looming in orbit. "We're going up there," he said to his strike team. "We're going to hit them where it hurts." Using their enhanced strength and agility, Nicholas and his team leaped from rooftop to rooftop, dodging enemy fire as they made their way to the nearest Krenim landing craft. They boarded the ship and fought their way to the cockpit, overpowering the crew with ease. As they rocketed into orbit, Nicholas's mind raced. He knew the command ship would be heavily defended. They would only have one shot at this. Failure was not an option. They docked with the command ship and stormed out, engaging the Krenim guards in close-quarters combat. Energy beams crisscrossed the corridors as the two sides clashed. Nicholas led the way, his body a blur of motion as he dispatched enemies left and right. Finally they reached the bridge. The Krenim commander stood before them, his face a mask of rage. "You dare to invade my ship?" he snarled. Nicholas didn't bother with a reply. He charged forward, the commander's energy blast splashing harmlessly against his chest. He tackled the commander to the ground and knocked him unconscious with a single punch. "Secure the singularity cannon," Nicholas barked to his team. They rushed to the weapons console, inputting the firing codes they had stolen from Mizar's corpse. The cannon hummed to life, its barrel glowing with an eerie blue light. The cannon unleashed a beam of pure destruction, a tear in the fabric of space-time itself. Half the Krenim fleet simply vanished, swallowed up by the ravenous singularity. The remaining ships scattered, their crews thrown into chaos. On the bridge of the command ship, Nicholas let out a breath. They had struck a decisive blow, but he knew the war was far from over. The Krenim would regroup, and they would come back stronger than ever. They needed a new plan, a way to take the fight to the enemy and end this conflict once and for all. Nicholas clenched his fist, his mind already racing with possibilities. One way or another, humanity would prevail. They had come too far to fail now. In the hidden bunker deep beneath the ruins of Los Angeles, Dr. Novak's team worked feverishly, analyzing fragments of Krenim technology recovered from the battlefields above. Sparks flew as they connected salvaged components to their own experimental devices, their faces taut with concentration. Nicholas paced the laboratory, his enhanced body thrumming with restless energy. The stalemate above weighed heavily on him. Every moment they delayed, more human lives were lost. Dr. Novak looked up from her work, her eyes alight with excitement. "Nicholas, I think we've found something." She led him to a hastily assembled apparatus. a tangle of wires and pulsing Krenim power cells. By studying their technology, we've uncovered a way to tap into the fundamental forces of the universe. Gravity, space-time, even causality itself. Nicholas furrowed his brow. What does that mean exactly? It means we can give you control over these forces. You would be able to manipulate them, bend them to your will. Dr. Novak took a breath, her expression turning grave. But the process will be unlike anything we've done before. It will push your mind and body to the absolute limit. There's no guarantee of survival. Nicholas stepped forward without hesitation. I'll do it. If it means giving humanity a fighting chance, I'll take the risk. The preparations were made swiftly. Nicholas lay back in the augmentation tank, his body connected to the humming Krenim device. Dr. Novak gave the signal, and the process began. Nicholas's world exploded into a kaleidoscope of sensation. Raw power flooded his veins, his cells vibrating with cosmic energy. Space and time unfolded before him, a vast tapestry of interwoven threads. He saw the past, the present, and countless possible futures stretching out to infinity. With a thought, he could grasp these threads, manipulating them like a weaver at a loom. As the transformation neared its climax, Nicholas caught a fleeting glimpse of a future where humanity triumphed, rising from the ashes of war to spread throughout the stars. The vision filled him with unshakable resolve. Nicholas emerged from the tank reborn, his body glowing with an otherworldly aura. Dr. Novak and her team looked on in awe, scarcely daring to breathe. Nicholas flexed his hands, marveling at the cosmic forces that now answered his call. For the first time since the invasion began, he felt a flicker of hope. He turned to Dr. Novak, his eyes blazing with determination. It's time to take the fight to the Krenim. High above the Earth, the Krenim fleet maintained its chokehold, ringing the planet in an impenetrable blockade. On the bridge of the flagship, Krenim officers monitored their sensors, alert for any sign of human activity. Suddenly alarms blared as a massive energy surge erupted from the surface. The Krenim had mere seconds to react, before a swirling vortex of light and gravity appeared in their midst, tearing a hole through the fabric of space-time. From this rift emerged a fleet of human ships, their hulls pitted and scarred from endless battle. At their head flew a small single-pilot craft, its hull pulsing with the same otherworldly energy. Nicholas sat at the controls, his eyes focused on the Krenim ships ahead. With a thought, he reached out across the void, seizing hold of the fundamental forces that held the enemy fleet together. Krenim ships shuddered and buckled as gravity reversed itself around them. Hulls crumpled like tin foil as the very space they occupied twisted and distorted. The fabric of reality rippled like a pond, disturbed by a stone. Panic spread through the Krenim ranks as their fleet was thrown into chaos. Ships collided with each other, their formations shattering like glass. Nicholas flew through the heart of the maelstrom, untouched by the forces he had unleashed. Krenim weapons fire bent around him, deflected by localized distortions in space-time. With the fleet in disarray, the human ships surged forward, striking at the exposed Krenim supply lines. Explosions bloomed in the void as fuel depots and munitions dumps erupted into flames. At the center of the chaos strode Nicholas, a god of war wreathed in cosmic fire. Krenim soldiers quailed at his approach, their weapons falling from nerveless fingers. They whispered of the Godslayer, the human who could unmake the universe with a thought. With the Krenim fleet fractured and reeling, Nicholas wasted no time pressing his advantage. He assembled strike teams of his most skilled empowered warriors and led daring raids deep into Krenim-controlled space. Krenim stronghold after Krenim stronghold fell before the relentless human onslaught. Fortress walls that had stood unbreached for centuries crumbled under the devastating power of Earth's empowered. Krenim war engines that had once rained destruction on human cities now lay shattered and burning. Nicholas fought at the head of every charge, his cosmic powers carving a path of ruin through the enemy ranks. Where he walked, Krenim soldiers fled in terror, their weapons forgotten in their haste to escape. But for all their victories, Nicholas knew their fight was far from over. The Krenim Empire spanned galaxies, its resources near limitless. Reinforcements poured in from distant outposts, each new fleet larger and more heavily armed than the last. To have any hope of ultimate victory, they would need to decapitate the Krenim leadership, and that meant assaulting the heavily defended imperial homeworld of Kren Prime. But Kren Prime lay beyond the maelstrom, a volatile expanse of space where gravitational anomalies and unstable energy fields had spelled doom for countless ships. The Krenim had always considered it an impenetrable barrier, a natural fortification no enemy could hope to cross. They had grown complacent behind its protection. Nicholas, however, saw opportunity where others saw only obstacle. The powers that coursed through his transformed body gave him an innate mastery of the forces that held the universe together. Where others saw chaos, he perceived complex patterns, eddies and currents in the fabric of space-time. Poring over stolen Krenim star charts and data stolen from enemy outposts, Nicholas plotted a winding course through the heart of the maelstrom. It was a path only he could navigate, a narrow channel of relative stability threading between roiling vortices of destruction. Marshalling the combined might of the human resistance, Nicholas committed his forces to the perilous journey. Krenim scouting ships harried them as they entered the maelstrom, struggling to lock weapons through the electromagnetic interference. But Nicholas's fleet pushed forward, trusting in his guidance. Shielded human strikecraft wove through twisting currents of gravimetric shear. The pilot's reflexes pushed to superhuman levels by their empowered physiology. Larger ships plowed through clouds of exotic radiation that would have cooked unprotected crews, their hulls glowing cherry red. At the very heart of the maelstrom, space itself seemed to scream, the barrier between realities stretching gossamer thin. Nicholas could feel the texture of the multiverse at his fingertips, a kaleidoscope of potential futures just beyond reach. With a final surge of power, he wrenched his fleet through a last desperate course correction. And then they were through, emerging into the starry calm of Krenim home space. Kren Prime hung before them, a massive orb of glittering cities and bristling battlements, the nexus of the Krenim Empire's power. No defending fleet rose to meet them, no alarm klaxons split the silence. The Krenim, certain in their centuries-long invulnerability, had left their flanks exposed, never dreaming an attack could come from the maelstrom. Nicholas felt a grim smile tug at his lips. At long last, they had the chance to drive a stake through the heart of the empire that had brought humanity to the brink of extinction. With a thought, he set his ships into attack formation, targeting the planet's defense grid and communication hubs. Then, in a flare of displaced air, Nicholas himself vanished from the bridge of his flagship, ready to lead the first strike team into the heart of the enemy stronghold. The final battle was about to begin. With humanity's forces closing in, the Krenim leadership played their final desperate card. Deep within the bowels of their capital city, they activated a doomsday device capable of unmaking reality itself. The machine thrummed with malevolent power, space-time fracturing around it as it charged towards critical mass. Nicholas, leading the vanguard of the human assault, felt the reverberations in the fabric of the universe. His cosmic senses screamed in alarm as he perceived the Krenim's insane gambit. They meant to erase humanity's ascension from history, undoing all the hard-fought victories and sacrifices that had brought them to this moment. "All units, fall back!" Nicholas barked into his comm, his voice cracking with urgency. "The Krenim have activated some kind of temporal weapon. Reality is coming apart at the seams." Around him, the once solid walls of the Krenim fortress shimmered and warped, flickering between different states of existence. Soldiers from both sides stumbled and cried out in confusion as their memories fractured, timelines overlapping in their minds. Nicholas pushed forward, his powers straining to maintain his own temporal coherence. Each step was a battle against the unraveling of causality itself. Flashes of phantom realities danced at the edges of his vision, glimpses of futures that never were, and pasts that never would be. He burst into the inner sanctum, a cavernous chamber dominated by the pulsing mass of the Doomsday device. Cranium technicians scrambled frantically around the machine, their faces twisted with fanatical zeal. "Fools," Nicholas roared. "You'll destroy everything, yourselves included." The lead technician, a gaunt figure with haunted eyes, looked up at Nicholas's approach. "Better to embrace oblivion than to kneel before our former slaves," he spat. Nicholas leapt forward, his power crackling around him, but it was too late. With a final triumphant cry, the technician threw a switch, and the device unleashed its terrible power. Reality shattered like glass. Timelines splintered and collapsed, folding in on themselves in a kaleidoscope of contradictions. Nicholas felt himself falling, plunging into the heart of the temporal maelstrom. He was adrift in a sea of shattered causality, the tattered remnants of time and space swirling around him. He saw flashes of the past and future, the Cranium invasion, the rise of the empowered, battles won and lost. All of it was coming undone, unraveling thread by thread. But even here, in the eye of the chronal storm, Nicholas held on to himself. His enhanced physiology, the same power that had allowed him to master gravity and space, now became his anchor. He clung to his own timeline, his own sense of self, even as the universe came apart around him. With a supreme effort of will, he reached out, grasping at the shattered fragments of reality. He could feel the shape of the Doomsday device at the heart of the storm, the nexus point from which the temporal destruction emanated. Gritting his teeth, Nicholas poured all his strength, all his cosmic power into a single point. He tore open a rift in the fabric of space-time, a conduit leading directly into the core of the Cranium device. Chronal energy flooded through the rift, a searing torrent of raw temporal power. Nicholas channeled it, focusing it, shaping it into a cascading feedback loop. The Doomsday device shuddered and screamed, its structure unable to withstand the onslaught of paradox. With a blinding flash and a roar that shook the foundations of the universe, the device imploded. The Cranium capital, the nerve center of their empire, vanished in a blaze of chronometric annihilation, taking a large chunk of the planet with it. The shockwave rippled out through space and time, a tidal wave of restabilizing reality. Across the galaxy, Cranium ships shuddered and went dark, their technology overloaded by the chronal backlash. Mighty warships drifted helpless and powerless, reduced to little more than floating tombs. On 100 worlds, 100 races looked up in wonder as their Cranium overlords fell. Tentatively, disbelievingly, they reached out to one another, realizing that the boot pressing down on their collective neck had suddenly vanished. From the ruins of the Cranium homeworld, Nicholas emerged, battered and drained but triumphant. He had stared into the face of temporal Armageddon and emerged victorious, though the cost had been staggering. As word of the Cranium's fall spread, a galaxy long cowed by their dominance began to stir. Whispers of rebellion, of retribution, began to echo through the stars. One by one, the remaining Cranium strongholds fell, their garrisons overwhelmed by the combined might of a dozen species, unified in their desire for vengeance. Nicholas's powers diminished, but his resolve unshaken, stood at the forefront of this great galactic uprising. He became a symbol, a rallying point for all those who had suffered under Cranium rule. Empowered and unaugmented alike flocked to his banner, ready to forge a new future free from the shackles of their former masters. Together they would build a new galactic order, one founded on equality, cooperation, and the hard-won lessons of their shared struggle. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but for the first time in generations the galaxy looked to the future with hope instead of fear. In the aftermath of the Cranium Empire's fall, Nicholas stood at the forefront of the fledgling coalition, his cosmic powers a beacon of hope for the once oppressed races. Yet even as he worked tirelessly to forge a new era of peace and cooperation, he could feel a growing unease within himself. The same abilities that had allowed him to shatter the Cranium's hold now seemed to be eating away at his very essence, replacing human warmth with an icy, alien detachment. Emotions that had once come so easily, compassion, empathy, love, now felt distant, like half-remembered dreams. Desperate to hold on to his humanity, Nicholas sought out Dr. Novak, the architect of his transformation. But when he arrived at her lab, he found it abandoned, the equipment stripped and the databanks wiped clean. Undeterred, Nicholas threw himself into the search, using his powers to scour the galaxy for any trace of the enigmatic scientist. He followed a trail of cryptic clues and half-erased data trails, his determination growing with each dead end. The search led him to a desolate planet on the fringes of known space, its surface pockmarked with the ruins of a long-dead civilization. As he picked his way through the crumbling structures, Nicholas could feel the echo of ancient power thrumming in the very stones. In the heart of the ruins, he discovered a vast chamber, its walls covered in intricate hieroglyphs and flickering holographic projections. The images told a story of a species that had once reached the pinnacle of technological achievement, mastering the very fabric of space and time. But their power had come at a terrible price. The more they had pushed the boundaries of the possible, the further they had drifted from their own morality. In the end, they had become little more than cold, calculating machines, their humanity erased by the very forces they sought to control. Nicholas felt a chill run down his spine as he saw parallels to his own journey. Was this the fate that awaited him? To become a being of pure cosmic power, untethered from the very things that made him human? As despair threatened to overwhelm him, Nicholas noticed a small pulsing glyph hidden among the warnings of doom. It spoke of balance, of the need to temper power with wisdom and compassion. With renewed purpose, Nicholas left the ruins behind, his mind racing with the implications of his discovery. He had to find Dr. Novak, to unravel the secrets of their shared destiny before it was too late. He would not allow himself to become like the Krenim, or the ancient race that had fallen to their own hubris. He would find a way to wield his powers for the good of all, to protect the very humanity that had given rise to him. As he set out once more into the stars, Nicholas could feel the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders, but he would not falter, would not let the sacrifices of so many be in vain. One way or another, he would find the path to balance and lead the coalition into a brighter future. Nicholas's ship sliced through the roiling clouds of the gas giant, buffeted by the planet's turbulent winds. His sensors had picked up an anomalous energy signature deep within the planet's atmosphere, a flickering beacon that matched the frequency Dr. Novak had used in her encrypted research notes. Nicholas guided his ship into the station's hangar bay, the energy field parting like a curtain to allow him passage. As he stepped out onto the deck, he was met by an eerie stillness, the only sound the distant hum of advanced machinery. He made his way deeper into the station, following the twisting corridors towards the source of the strange energy readings. The walls were lined with glowing consoles and holographic displays, their alien script flickering and pulsing with a mesmerizing rhythm. And then he saw them. A group of beings stood before him, their forms composed of swirling patterns of light and energy. They were vaguely humanoid in shape, but their features were indistinct, constantly shifting and reforming like a kaleidoscope. "Welcome, Nicholas Robertson," one of the beings spoke, its voice a resonant chorus that seemed to echo from everywhere at once. "We have been expecting you." Nicholas tensed, his cosmic powers instinctively flaring to life around him. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Where is Dr. Novak?" The being inclined its head, a gesture that seemed to convey amusement. "We are the Ascended," it said, "the last remnants of a civilization that once spanned the stars. And as for Dr. Novak—" It gestured, and a figure emerged from the shadows behind it. Nicholas's eyes widened as he recognized the familiar face of his former mentor, now suffused with the same ethereal glow as the Ascended. "Hello, Nicholas," Dr. Novak said, her voice tinged with an otherworldly resonance. "I'm sorry for disappearing on you, but I had to complete my work, to understand the true nature of the power we've unleashed." Nicholas shook his head, struggling to process what he was seeing. "The true nature? What are you talking about?" Dr. Novak spread her hands, and the air around her shimmered with complex equations and swirling diagrams. The process that gave you your abilities, that allowed us to manipulate space and time, it's so much more than we ever realized. It's a doorway, Nicholas, a path to a higher plane of existence. She gestured to the Ascended. They showed me the way, taught me how to shed my physical form and become something greater, and now they offer the same to you. Nicholas reeled, his mind racing with the implications. To leave his humanity behind, to become a being of pure energy and thought, it was a staggering concept. The Ascended seemed to sense his hesitation. You stand at a crossroads, Nicholas Robertson, the chorus of voices intoned. One path leads to a future where you guide your species to the stars, a beacon of hope and strength in a chaotic universe. The other... The being paused, and for a moment, Nicholas glimpsed a vision of himself, transcendent and radiant, a being of limitless power and knowledge. The other path leads to a higher understanding, a unity with the fabric of creation itself. The choice is yours. Nicholas closed his eyes, his mind and heart torn between two destinies. On one hand, the chance to guide humanity, to protect them and lead them into a new age. On the other, the lure of a higher existence, a oneness with the universe itself. Nicholas looked from Dr. Novak to the shimmering forms of the Ascended, his heart heavy with the weight of his decision. As much as the promise of transcendence called to him, he knew his place was with his own kind. They needed him now more than ever, to guide them through the aftermath of the war and into a new era of peace and prosperity. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "but my path lies with humanity. I can't abandon them, not after everything we've been through." Dr. Novak nodded, a sad smile playing across her luminous features. "I understand," she said. "You have always been their champion, their protector. It's who you are." With a final, lingering look, he turned and strode back to his ship, the weight of his choice settling over him, the familiar weight of armor. But as he prepared to depart the station, alarms blared across his console. Sensors detected multiple signatures emerging from the roiling depths of the gas giant, Krenium ships, their hulls bristling with advanced weaponry. "Impossible," Nicholas breathed. "We destroyed their empire. How can they be here?" Nicholas's ship rocked as the first volley of fire struck his shields. He cursed, his hands flying across the controls as he tried to evade the incoming barrage. But these were no ordinary Krenium vessels. Their weapons seemed to warp reality itself, causing space to twist and buckle around Nicholas's ship. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, the hull groaning under the strain of forces beyond mere physics. And then, to Nicholas's horror, he saw them, Krenium warriors, their forms wreathed in the same shimmering energy as the Ascended. They moved through the void of space unhindered, their weapons leaving trails of distorted reality in their wake. Nicholas gritted his teeth, calling upon every ounce of his own cosmic power. He wove between the attacking ships, his vessel dancing a desperate waltz amidst the chaos of the battle. Beams of chronal energy lanced from his weapons, seeking to disrupt the Krenium's reality-bending technology. For a moment, it seemed to work. Ships flickered and phased, their attacks passing harmlessly through Nicholas's shields. But the Krenium adapted quickly, their Ascended warriors focusing their powers to counter Nicholas's chronal manipulation. Space warped and twisted around him, threatening to tear his ship apart at the seams. In a last desperate gambit, Nicholas channeled all his energy into a single massive burst of chronal power. Time itself seemed to stutter and freeze, the Krenium ships and warriors locked in a moment of frozen stillness. Seizing the opportunity, Nicholas gunned his engines, his ship leaping forward like a loosed arrow. He wove through the frozen tableau of the battle, his heart pounding in his ears as he waited for the chronal stasis to break. Moments stretched into eternity. Then, with a shuddering lurch, time resumed its normal flow. The Krenium fleet reeled in confusion, their formation scattered by Nicholas's desperate gambit. Nicholas didn't hesitate. He pushed his engines to their limit, rocketing away from the gas giant and its hidden dangers. His ship groaned and shuddered, its hull scarred by the reality-warping energies of the battle. But it held together, a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of its human creators. As the swirling storms of the gas giant fell away behind him, Nicholas let out a shuddering breath, his hands trembling on the controls. He had faced death before, stared down the barrel of annihilation 100 times over. But this had been different. The Krenim, empowered by the same cosmic forces that flowed through his own veins, had come closer to defeating him than any foe he had ever faced. And yet, even in the face of such power, Nicholas had emerged victorious. Battered, bruised but unbroken, a grim smile tugged at his lips as he plotted a course for Earth, for home. The war might be over, but the struggle was far from finished. There would always be those who sought to claim power for themselves, to bend reality to their own twisted whims. But as long as humanity had champions like Nicholas, as long as they had the courage to stand against the darkness, there was hope. Hope for a future free from the shackles of oppression, a future where every soul could reach for the stars without fear. Nicholas leaned back in his chair, his eyes fixed on the vast expanse of space before him. The journey ahead would be long and fraught with dangers both known and unknown. But he would not falter, would not rest until he had seen his people safe and prosperous, for he was the Godslayer, the champion of humanity. And he would fight for them until his last breath. As Nicholas's ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, his heart sank at the sight that greeted him. The once vibrant planet was now a patchwork of anomalies and distortions, the fabric of reality fraying at the seams. Entire cities flickered in and out of existence, caught in pockets of reversed time. Spatial distortions warped the landscape, twisting skyscrapers into impossible shapes and swallowing neighborhoods whole. Nicholas landed in the heart of what was once New York City, now a surreal landscape of shimmering energy and fractured space-time. He stepped out onto the cracked pavement, his eyes widening as he witnessed the chaos firsthand. A group of survivors huddled near the ruins of a building, their faces gaunt and haunted. They looked up as Nicholas approached, a flicker of recognition in their eyes. The survivor shook his head. The Ascended ones, they've lost control. Their powers are tearing reality apart. We're living in a nightmare. Nicholas clenched his fists, anger and determination surging through him. He had to confront the other Ascended leaders, to make them see the error of their ways before it was too late. "Nicholas," one of them called out, his voice echoing with an otherworldly resonance, "you've come to join us in our ascension?" Nicholas shook his head. "No, I've come to stop you. Can't you see what you're doing? You're destroying everything we fought to protect." The Ascended leader laughed, a sound that sent shivers down Nicholas's spine. "We are gods now, Nicholas. We have transcended the limits of mortal flesh. This world is ours to shape as we see fit." Nicholas stepped forward, his own power flaring to life around him. "I won't let you destroy our home. I'll stop you whatever it takes." The confrontation that followed was cataclysmic. Nicholas clashed with the Ascended leaders, his cosmic powers straining against their combined might. Blasts of chronal energy tore through the ruins of the city, shattering buildings and warping the very fabric of space-time. Some of the Ascended leaders, seeing the destruction they had wrought, joined Nicholas in his fight. Others, drunk on their own power, refused to yield. The battle raged for what felt like an eternity, reality itself quaking under the strain of their godlike abilities. In the end, Nicholas knew there was only one way to end the madness. Drawing upon every last ounce of his strength, he unleashed a massive chronal shockwave, pouring all of his power into a single, reality-altering burst. The shockwave swept across the planet, across the galaxy, resetting the timeline and undoing the ascension process that had granted the Ascended humans their abilities. In a blinding flash of light, they were reduced to their mortal forms, their powers stripped away. Nicholas staggered, his body racked with pain as the shockwave tore through him. He could feel the fabric of space-time shuddering around him, scarred by the immense forces unleashed. As the light faded, he looked down at his hands, now withered and aged. The toll of wielding such cosmic power had been immense, draining his vitality and leaving him a mere shadow of his former self. But as he looked out upon the world, now free from the threat of reality-warping gods, he knew the sacrifice had been worth it. Earth was battered and scarred, but it would heal. Humanity would find its way forward, guided by the hard-won wisdom of those who had nearly lost themselves in the pursuit of ultimate power. Nicholas turned away from the ruins of the city, his steps heavy with exhaustion. He knew his time was short now, his body and mind ravaged by the forces he had wielded, but he was content, knowing that he had fulfilled his duty and secured the future of his species. As he walked into the sunset, ready to live out his remaining days in quiet solitude, Nicholas reflected on the legacy of the ascended humans. Their story would be remembered as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of reaching too far and losing sight of one's humanity in the face of the infinite. The galaxy would move forward, the scars of the ascended humans' hubris serving as a constant reminder, and humanity, flawed but unbroken, would continue its march towards the stars, wiser and more cautious, but no less determined to unravel the mysteries of the universe. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.